about business stuff. One is a realtor, the other's really buff. Sometimes they have guests. It's the Conscious Business Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Conscious Business Podcast, everybody. We have some really rad guests lined up in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. We got a local politician possibly coming out to talk about his lifestyle and hot dogs and how he got into politics, so that'll be cool. I don't know, you have no one lined up, do you?
Nobody wants to talk to me. And
useless.
people are afraid. I have the witty questions that I could totally embarrass them with, and they don't know. I want to ask you a few questions. You want to ask me a few questions.
Let's do her.
Yeah. This segment brought to you by
Eel.
What's your Patrick, right? Middle name?
Patrick Robert.
PR.
I should stop telling people my personal information. They could
like your social insurance number starts with 7.
Hey, actually, before we get too far, the pot belly comment, I really appreciate it. This is my power belly though. It's not a pot belly. So correct your fucking comment.
What's your body fat percentage? This is very
I actually don't know.
Right?
I have no idea.
It's such an arbitrary.
My legs are 33.5 inches rounds and they're pretty solid. So,
and that's when you go around both of them?
no, one and hit one leg. So I have high body fat, don't get me wrong, but like it's mainly in my tummy. So
Yeah, no, my legs are not that big, nor my arms.
pretty sure my calves are probably bigger than your like quads.
I got pretty decent quads.
Do you?
Yeah.
You do ride bikes. Bikes is,
I would love to bulk up a little bit, but I also, there's weight limits on bicycles.
I'm well aware of this, yes.
At that weight limit when I'm racing, so
So what you're saying is you're actually fat for bike racing.
bicycling is discriminating against me, and I'm just trying to be a part of it.
So a couple of years ago, I went to Dominican Republic and we went on like an excursion, me and my friend. And it was to like a coffee plantation and they had horses there. And I was like, I think I was like 280 at the time, but the horses were like not powerful horses like we have here. They're fucking pitiful.
Yeah.
And so I got on it and the horse is like not having a good time. So like I asked my like guide, I'm like, hey, is there like a weight restriction? He's like, yeah, it's like 250 pounds. And I'm pretty sure like the time I was like 280.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this horse is just dying right now with my fat ass on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that same plantation, they had a sign that said, we used to use cattle and slaves to like farm the land, and we now no longer use cattle. My jaw hit the floor and I laughed so hard. So
Slavery still exists.
it's a thing. Yep.
I'm pretty sure it exists here in Canada.
I have a friend that owns a big vegetable farm here in town, and he imports them all the time to work. And it's a lot of them, they always ask for like getting like how do they get their like green card or like live here permanently or whatever. And he's like, just keep sending your money back home, build whatever you're gonna build, and like move home. Don't move here.
Yeah, it's amazing how much it's crazy, because it's not cheap to live here.
No, it sucks.
And you have to participate in that economy of being part of society here, and it's not cheap. And we see it with a lot of our clients who send money back to, whether it be the Philippines or Malaysia or Mexico, like they send money back and it goes so much further there. So it just kind of shows what we overpay to get. Have you ever, before we started filming, we were talking about how overpriced Amazon was. But if you look at the market around the world, we see that our product is actually charged more here because we're willing to pay for it. What are you finding on the market right now?
So I'm actually seeing quite a bit of activity. I feel like the way financing has gone with the stress test the last couple of years, you're finding very qualified buyers that are, $150,000, $200,000 household income, decent down payment, that are still looking to make that move up, maybe from a condo, townhouse to home, or that's that move down. So I'm busy. I've talked to a lot of colleagues though that are not busy in the market. So I think it all has to do with relationships and partnerships and whatnot. But I think I think it's going to be a good fall. I think with the last 2 rate cuts that we've seen with the Bank of Canada, I think it's going to lead to a good sentiment of like, okay, now is the time to make a move if we're going to make it before things get crazy again. And I think it'll lead to hopefully a good 2025.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
How about you?
Definitely seeing people coming out to open houses, interested in products, but they're held up because they have to sell their product first to be able to purchase the next step. And that's kind of putting a lot of people into a situation where if there's no one buying and getting that first product off the market, it's not passing it through the market.
The cycle is not working correctly.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of that patience waiting for it, and lots of time on market. And people are also trying to attract those few buyers that are out there at this very moment by reducing their price. So we're seeing people get stuff below what you would assume is market value, just based on the fact that the price is so low.
Yeah, but I mean, market value is one of those things that's a moving goalpost, right? Like a market value is like, what are you willing to pay?
Yeah.
And if it was $500,000 over asking because you physically can afford that, then that's just market value to you, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think it's going to lead to a good 2025. We got the provincial elections coming up here in a couple months. Hopefully some changes
Yeah.
positively there, and we'll see what the federal election does next year. So
Yeah. It's honestly, get your ducks in a row. That's
get pre-qualified, everybody.
well, and even I've sent people your way and I've said, like, get a game plan set up so that you know what you're getting into, what you can afford, and take that time to really build a game plan.
Get good, honest advice too, because Jesse's in a couple situations right now where the clients were not giving good advice and they're in a couple pickles.
Yeah. And even if you're doing your due diligence, make sure you have stuff in writing that's telling you exactly what they're going to provide you. And it's super critical because things are not moving the way others are seeing it. Trust what your realtor's telling you and listen, right? Make sure if they're telling you to do one thing, don't think that it's the old way. Like, we're not seeing prices from 2022 and we're not seeing the rate of trade as we did in even 2023.
All right. So with that being said, let's get into kind of our first topic, work-life balance. What is your thoughts on it? Is it like a 50-50 split? Can you have a thriving business and have a thriving life, or does one of them have to take a back burner?
I think one has to take back burner. Out of told truth, like the way I'm experiencing what the way real estate goes, what my role is in real estate is I have to be available for people almost 24/7. There's respectful boundaries, like don't expect a phone call after 9 o'clock from me. Don't expect one before 8 a.m. Like those for sure, I think can stay. But there's still work to be done after 9 p.m., right? Like there's stuff to program for the next day, follow up, cleanups, all that stuff. But in terms of putting out fires and taking care of people and talking to them, it's really tough after that point to do both. So I have 2 young kids at home, a nice little 3.5-year-old and my youngest daughter.
You should know this. Don't forget ages here.
My youngest daughter just turned 6 months yesterday, so it's crazy. But I want to be there. You do an awesome job. You're with Cade for the weekends to do baseball and soccer and all, right? That's why I got into the industry, so I can have that flexibility. I'm honestly trying to figure out whether I can pause from real estate for a couple weeks at a time. I'm not saying like take every second month off, but I'm saying like there should be a point where I can unplug for a little bit because I find I get really drained, right? And so my work-life balance is suffering. My partner, she doesn't love the idea of like me being on the phone every moment that is needed. So yeah, like it's a tough to get that balance. Ideal situation, man, be able to cook dinner, be able to pick up the kids and have that as a quiet time, go to the gym without having to worry about checking your phone. We're doing our podcast right now. It usually takes us about an hour to 2 hours to do our podcast. And I leave my phone off to the side and I get anxious by the end, wondering what's going to be there for me for work. So yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough one. I know when I first started the industry, I like had that conversation with my girlfriend, I guess at the time, now wife, of like, this is going to be very me centric. It's going to be like, we go out for dinner. I'm going to be like listening to other conversations so I can like, hey, you need financing? Like what's going on or whatever. And I did do that a few times. And, you know, it worked out. I like had a really good start, like we've talked about in the past of, you know, average agent does, you know, 10 to 15 deals. My first 8 months was 55 deals. So like me being all in worked, but there was no, like, it was like 24/7 basically working, right? And there was no like back burner. 2021 was very similar with the crazy year. And I was just super reactive and just like trying to get deals funded and like figure out everything as we were going. Then with my mom passing in the end of 2021, wanted to focus more on family, had some other emergency family stuff going on, and it wasn't able to work as much, but I drastically saw the change in like my financial background. And it was just really, I don't know. I don't think, like I said, like, I think there's eventually a point where you can get your business to, you have people and you have managers in place and you have things happening where you're like, yeah, I'm hands off. Like I do meetings for 4 hours and I'm done. But like, I don't think either of us are anywhere close to that right now.
No.
And ultimately too, like I know for myself being part of a team last year that is very much kind of like that. I also don't really want that kind of business either.
Well, we saw a lot of teams disband last year. Yep. And if you put yourself in that situation, you've caught, honestly, you have a risk in your business because you have to pay out those people.
Yeah.
And they're honestly not experiencing what real estate pays out to be. If you're getting a paycheck sporadically, there's not a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? So an employee, as you call it, they're getting the consistent paycheck. You're riding the up and downs. So you should be rewarded for the higher risk.
Yeah.
And yeah, it'd be ideal to have your business running very smoothly, be able to take breaks from it, but you need to be involved in it. You need to constantly inspect what you expect. The moment you take a break, that's when stuff kind of goes awry or questionable or, yeah, it's really tough. It's not easy to have the perfect schedule either.
With that kind of being said, then where do you see your business? I know we've talked about like possibly assistants. I know we've talked about maybe a small team in kind of your future, but like, how do you see yourself, even if it's not 5 years, let's say 15 years or something like that, like over whatever timeline you figure, how do you see you getting yourself to like a perfect 50-50 type blend?
I got out of my previous employment intentionally to have time for a family, time for my friends, and be able to still have an income. It doesn't have to be as much as I made before, but I have to live comfortably, right? And I think I'm in year 3. The first 2 years allowed me to kind of develop how much money I need to operate the business, to be able to market, to be able to purchase what I need to do the business. And then you also have to add on what your living expenses go to be. And I'm not a lavish person.
Yeah, you're very frugal.
Right?
It's very impressive.
And for me, there has to be a balance and meeting the expectations of like the spouse. They need money too, right? Like they're expecting your income to contribute to the household. So you got to pick where it works. I honestly have no clue how much work I really want to do or the ebb and flow. We're seeing it change in the market too, the ebb and flow of the market. It used to be continuously busy, and we're almost seeing where the spring market and the fall market are becoming the selling prime time.
Going back to normal.
Yeah, and that wasn't something I experienced. I was used to going continuously. So I'm trying to adapt. I would love to be able to take one weekend day off. I would love to be able to have enough time with my kids, my wife, my friends, be able to bike, right? Like everything. I would love it all. What do you have to sacrifice? And a neat thing to think about is like, when I figured out what my hourly rate was, my income, you can kind of see what are important things to do.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time gardening. I love.
Does that make you money?
Doesn't make a dime. And you're growing things like potatoes, which are like pennies a pound, let's call it. It's more than.
Or if you go to Costco free, you just return them.
Yeah. But that means like, this is the part where there's certain things that give you more joy than income, right?
Yeah.
You want to do those joyful things. I don't dread my business, but I'm not loving the the consumption of my time, or the amount of time I have to be available to people. And there's also like, you're waiting for responses, you're, you know, doing the other work, working on the business, not just taking care of the business. There's all sorts of stuff to it. So there has to be, I haven't found the balance, and I don't think many people have, but there's a go button that when you're on it, you have to be all in.
Well, that could be the balance though, right? Like it could be as simple as 3-4 months on, and then you do take a month or two off.
Yeah.
Right. And then you do it again, and there's your year done, right? So, but I think there has to be, if that is what you're going to do, that conversation has to be had with the people in your life, so that way they do realize Dad or Jesse is away for this time, and we'll have the cool trips or the cool vacations or
set up,
whatever the case is during when you're back, right?
And I find you probably experienced this too. Have you guys gone on your honeymoon?
No.
Because you don't know what business is going to be like. Right? So you have this hard time planning. Even when we're setting up the time for this podcast, you have a hard time planning your day because you don't know when you're needed.
Yep.
Right?
Well, it's even like as you touch on that topic, like we had the honeymoon. So like for myself, I have provincials and strongman coming up in September. About a month after is nationals in New Brunswick, which by all accounts I should most likely receive an invite based on the amount of competitors where I should fall. We'll see what happens. And then we're supposed to go on a 3-week vacation to the UK because my wife graduates from the University of Ireland. So the Kelowna trip's not that expensive, but like obviously New Brunswick becomes, a fairly expensive trip. Then we have probably a, $10,000 to $15,000 trip going to Europe. And so it's like, do we try to now book camping, which we both love to do and Cade loves to do now, or do we just kind of hunker down for the summer? Because I am rolling for the most part business wise, and then hope maybe the fall is slower and we can take that time off, or do we try to plan like we had this conversation yesterday? It turned into a little bit of an argument, but it was just like I can't turn away the business now because it's good, and unfortunately last year it wasn't good, and it hurt the wallet book. And after paying for the wedding and everything, like we need to recoup. And well, I luckily can kind of print money with my job and just find more deals. So it's like, let's recoup while the going is good.
And it takes a little bit of while, like it takes some time for the steam engine to start producing your leads.
Yeah.
Things develop. So if you pulled the plug right now, all that effort and all that time you waited
exactly, it's just gone.
Is gone, and you have to reboot the machine and wait for it to start producing again. And yeah, it's an interesting economic cycle that you have to deal with. And yeah, it's just a matter of I don't want to sound like a teacher, but I kind of want my summer break because I do a lot of my competitions in the summer and training and late nights doing that. It would be nice.
I know I didn't get you at one soccer game this year. You didn't ride your...
No, yeah, that's true. I've been training a lot indoors too. We had a great heat spell. I suck at the heat. Like once it goes over 24, I'm not good.
AC.
Yeah. Riding late at night, like my 10 o'clock onward till like 1 in the morning is biking.
I'm asleep.
Yeah. And that's the other part too, is my sleep is horrible right now. I'm not optimized. I've chopped my sleep down. I've got, an infant at home, and I've got a young kid at home. They need attention right away. There's no like keeping them sleeping for an extra half an hour.
You can put a lock on their door and just lock them in there and just come back in an hour.
That's true. One doesn't know how to open doors, so it makes it even easier.
That's easier, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
This is like prime parenting 101.
I'll take these. I'll make notes and I'll pass it by. But yeah. And then also, you have to have time for the other people in your life, right? Like it's not just kids. It's not just biking. Yeah.
You have a marriage, you got to keep going.
Yeah. You don't want to get divorced 5-6 times in your life.
Unless they're rich, they take all their money.
50%.
They try to. So we touched on kind of income number and like where like whatever your kind of number is. That's kind of the next question is like, what is that income number? So you have like your hourly wage of what have you kind of worked out for yourself?
It was about $150 last year.
So mine has been down, but in 2021 is what I've based it off of. Mine was like upwards of $650 an hour. Mm-hmm. And so that's what deemed me to be like, hey, I can have an assistant or something like that doing things for, even if it's $40 an hour, because it's below my time, right? Like, and I can make phone calls that will get me to that 650. So with that hourly number of being about 150 for you, how much is the income that you need per year, roughly, give or take, in ballpark? And then what is too much?
Comfortably, I know I can live off of, in the whole household, easily 100,000. Like, we can keep that place operating, no problem.
So that's including wife's income then?
Yeah, like, let's say $7,000 a month.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Very capable. To get ahead and to feel like all this effort is worth it, I would probably see a quarter, like, I would say about 250 a year.
Okay.
And if I can do 250 a year, all this effort is worth it. It's very easy to do 250,000.
Just to clarify, 250 revenue for, because you're a prac, so it's your business. So 250 revenue for your business is like,
And if I kept that in, yeah, and if I kept that in the business, that's fine to me.
yeah.
Right? If the income that I take for the household, just it's covering bills or wants, right? At that point, because we could probably live off of one income. Tight, for sure, but yeah. I honestly, like, I don't know where my limit is. I don't know how much I can do and want, and like what would the sacrifice be, but where would I be comfortable? I'd be comfortable, and I know like the amount of time it needs to do all this, 200 to 250,000 would be where I think this business would be a healthy spot.
So, and you don't have to answer if this is like to a point, but is your 250 above your employment job that you had?
No.
No. So do you feel then, because you had an employment job that was theoretically more, what is like, okay, so for me, let me put it this way. For me, I was always making 150, 160 in construction for the most part. For me, I feel you can get a $100,000 job relatively easy. You maybe need some extra training or whatever the case is, but I feel like most people can go get that job. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's not worth brokering if we're only trying to make 100 grand.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to get at for you. Like for me, like I would like to have $1 million revenue business every year going forward. I don't need that much. It would leave a lot for other investments, other things like that. It would be comfortable. I could have probably a little bit of a small team behind me. It would probably free up the life side of things a little bit better. But up till I get to that $1 million revenue, so $100 million in funded mortgage, I don't know what that sacrifice would look like then.
Yeah.
Right. But 500,000 of revenue is probably even more healthy just for like the two-person team I have now or 3-person team I have now. Right. So where's that limit for you? Like all the work you're putting in with real estate, if you were making more with the employer side of things, is that like 350 for you then, 450? Like what makes it better than the job potentially that you had before? So besides like the freedom.
That's the key, is like the freedom's more important to me. The ability to take time off and to spend it with people. I know my time is finite here.
Yeah.
And I know the time of my family is finite, or the time of, opportunities to go have some adventure. And those are what recharge me. I don't want to get myself back in the position where I have no time for my family, or my obligations take me away from what I'd rather be doing, and that's spending time making memories.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not totally about the money, which it's one facet of our question here, but I really would rather have that opportunity. Like I have not biked.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot. Yeah.
I had not biked I moved up to Alberta in 2012. One of my friends, good friend up there, he took me out biking. We did 88 kilometers and I was pooched. And like before going up to Alberta.
I don't even do like 8 kilometers. Yeah, pooched, okay?
It's okay, you can tandem on here and I'll like pull you around. But I wasn't in a healthy situation. I didn't do any activities where I grew up. I was my school's Ironman, as we want to call it, did the store on the wall. I did a lot of swimming and running in university and played hockey growing up, and it all stopped. And that is a fabric of our identities, like being able to be a strong man is like what you tell a lot of people. For me, cycling is my addiction, right? Going fast, having the control, feeling the freedom, getting the exercise, having the fatigue to fall asleep, those are the things I wasn't getting when I was employed.
Yeah.
I don't want to get back into the position where I don't have that freedom, as I call it. And it's an unhealthy lifestyle to be living. So my goal with this operation that I'm doing is to have my freedom, provide the great service I want myself as a consumer for real estate, and then also be able to give back to the community, which were three things I wasn't getting when I was not self-employed.
Yeah.
Right? So if I can put those into perspective, family, exercise, and then the business, right? So
then would you say then right now for you, it's just like, and obviously there is other variables and I get that, but like, it's just time management is kind of where you're failing right now?
I would say, yeah, making sure I'm allocating time for myself, my family, and then the business can work around it. Like some people can wait an hour for a response.
Yeah.
And I think that's the interesting part is like, to me, I would rather give that response right away and interrupt my routine where I should be able to have self-control, put my phone aside and not react, right? And that's the other part is people pay you not to react.
Like the calm in the storm.
Right?
Yeah.
To distill that information and provide it to them. And it's critical, right? Like that you are able to disconnect from the business. So I'm in my learning phase of this business. I would say I've got another year and a half, maybe, and that's like my university education, right? Like that.
Yeah, I would probably agree. Like, cause this is like kind of year 4.5, 5 or whatever for me.
Yeah.
And it's probably the most comfortable I've been. And it probably took 3.5 really to kind of start feeling comfortable with the different transactions, with shit hitting the fan, with telling bad news, whatever the kind of the situation was. So yeah, that's probably about right, give or take.
Another way I've looked at it too is I find that when I'm in real estate, I've shown people that I deserve to be here. Yeah. I've already done that part of it, right? Now it's time to figure out what I really want out of it and how much time I want to spend doing this. Like my identity is not a real estate agent, right? But it's a fabric of what my life is. I need to understand that. And I belong here.
The beginning is like fake it till you make it anyway, right? So like I beginning, I always wore a suit for like the first year basically to try to pretend like I belonged on like finance world. And then I realized like, it doesn't matter.
No.
I would rather be like I actually quite enjoy when I meet somebody new. They're like, oh, what do you do for work? And I explain like, oh, I own a mortgage finance company. They're like, no way. Yeah. Like, and they're like shocked. It's like, yeah, like this tattooed big guy has a bit of a brain.
Yeah. And that's the part that people have to look into is we have a lot of people that do this industry and there's a variety of different people. Don't take shame in that somebody else is going elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
So as for like demons, I can get involved too much emotionally in deals for a long time. And I think one of the main reasons I had some issues in 2021 with different deals was like, hey, like first time buyers, like we're doing everything we can, but they need to go an extra $100,000. Yeah. Right. And like, they didn't necessarily have the money to do it, but I'm like trying to like tweak things here, do that. Like no fraudulent stuff, but just play with the numbers to get them there. And then like, because I was getting invested, then it was harder for me to be like, I can't do this, right? Whereas like now I'm pretty good at like, this is my line and like, you can't go above it. Yeah. This is your limit, play within it kind of thing. But that took, like you said, we kind of some failures and then you adjust to how you need to do things. And I kind of don't like it because it feels like I'm a little bit more transactional now, but unfortunately that is the business. The business is of funding mortgages, right?
Have to look at it as a transaction.
Yeah.
The emotional part eats at you.
Exactly.
Right.
So that was definitely an issue. I definitely don't turn off. I definitely can be like texting when at dinner time my phone is on do not disturb right now and it's flipped over, but if it was flipped up, we got a call, I'd probably take it. Right. So that's definitely an issue for me. I wouldn't say a demon. I honestly, probably the biggest thing is filter and like my mouth filter. And like, if I think like a realtor is being like a jackass, I literally will tell them they're being a jackass on a phone call. And that's maybe not the best way to do it, because I've built my business to service realtors just as much as I'm servicing the client. And I think that's the big reason to why, like, I have these top teams that are telling me to work with other top teams, and like things have been the way they're going. But you know, one, I tell the wrong person that he's a jackass or she's a jackass, the next thing you know, like, they're all going to be leaving me, right? So that's probably like the biggest thing. But that being said, like, there is brokers that do like knowable fraud, and like they still have thriving businesses, and there's like realtors that are jackasses and they're still doing deals, right? So there's always going to be transactions for any type of person, but I would definitely say like my filter is probably the worst problem I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find too, when back to the point about if I get really invested in something and it doesn't work the way you want, have you noticed where that line is? And you can say, like, that line I'm crossing right now, anything beyond this doesn't mean it's going to help the file. I honestly need to tell the people, like, your file is this much. Don't try and go above it. It won't work. You're pretty safe at this number, the 80%.
Not to that particular example. I have recently had some older clients come. They have like the multi-million-dollar house. The property taxes are too much. Like, there's things happening. And in one of them, unfortunately, she was pretty tapped up already of like taking mortgages to access equities. And not that the house has come down necessarily in value, but like she should sell. And I had a couple of solutions for her, but ultimately, like, the solutions were like,
The train's still running.
yeah, the problem wasn't solved. These were only, you know, maybe a year, maybe two at best. You know, I doubt we're going to see a 2021 again where, you know, she's going to see $1 million increase in her property, right? So it was like, you're really only solidifying this now, or you're only helping with a Band-Aid. It's going to bleed through eventually.
Yeah.
So is it better to rip it off now and, you know, you cut your losses, maybe we get you back into a condo, or do you try to hold out for 2 more years and maybe get nothing, depending on where things have gone, right? So in that one, actually, she called me an asshole because I kind of laid things out pretty like black and white, and maybe I could have been a little bit nicer about it, but I really thought about this a lot because it did kind of rub me the wrong way. And I think she called me an asshole, but I think she did end up selling because I know the realtor. And I think I was a big part of that because like I did lay it out in kind of a, not a dickhead way, but just very black and white. But I think it like put 2 and 2 together.
And you supported it with the numbers that she provided you. Honestly, I think you have to, even if she didn't become your client, you did the right thing.
Yeah. And that's what I've always like, that was one of the first talks we ever talked about was like, I will take a client to RBC if I know they'll do the deal. It doesn't mean I'm going to get paid. Yeah. I know I won't get paid, but like if I know if they have the solution, let's go, right? Yeah. And you know, I could have made a lot of money doing the restructuring of the private deals. I make more money on private deals. It probably would have been almost a $25,000 paycheck for me, and she would have been probably fine with it. But I've never done a private deal just to get paid, and I didn't want to like start on somebody's misfortune either, right? Because at the end of the day, her selling, she gets to keep that 25 grand in her pocket now, versus it would have been in my pocket. Yeah, I don't know. I thought about that one a lot, and I'm happy with how it all played out personally because like. Yeah, it just... You wish you got a little bit of a paycheck for your honesty? Not really. Honestly, not really. I'm just glad she sold. Like, I think if she went to another broker, if I found out another broker helped her out and then did that private deal, I think then I would have been a little mad because then it would have been like, well, if they're going to do it and they're going to live their life and they got paid, how come I'm trying to be like good and ethical about it? And like, you know, that's a whole nother kind of conversation, I guess. But yeah, at the end of the day, like she did take the advice and she sold. So it's like, I think that was the best way to approach it. But that being said, like I've had our regulator call me because people have complained because I've been an asshole. But again, like, I think it's just like, especially when I'm busy in particular, if you're going to ask not stupid questions that pertain, but you're just trying to like, you're not a serious buyer. You're not in it to actually buy a house or refinance a house or access to equity. I don't need to entertain you. Yeah. And so if you take that as being an asshole because I am busy and I'm doing other things, then that's not my problem at the end of the day. Biggest demon, yourself. Yeah, it's definitely myself. Definitely myself. I think most people would say that. Yeah. I have a big belief too. I'd rather tell somebody the truth. Yeah.
than lie and get their business. Even when I tell people the truth and they have something else they want to hear, I need to be very firm about, like, this is the truth. This is like the reality, and you're living in your self-created.
Well, and that like think of our buyers right now. They're younger family and arguably too small of a condo, and they're trying to get into a house, and they were looking above their budget, and then you got them a place, and then the bank wanted more down payment, and they got all like up in arms about it, right? Yeah. And it was more than expected for sure, but like that's what they needed to do, and it like they were mad because they didn't technically have the means to do it. So it's like, well, then why are we trying to extend your budget? The more you go for price means the more you have to put down no matter what.
And the more, even if you can do it, just because those boundaries are there and you're at the edge of the boundary doesn't mean you're safe. Yeah. It just means that somebody's algorithm that they put you in says that you can do it.
Yeah.
I honestly think there's a comfortable line. And different people will say, like, I don't want to spend more than this. I'm approved up to that amount. That's like the best answer I love to hear, because it means you've thoroughly gone through your budget and said, like, I can afford this. And if it goes up in terms of rate, I can still afford it. And if it goes down, even better. More pizza in my.
Yeah. Well, it's like these first time buyers couple I dealt with today that we removed subjects today, they were like, oh, we're going to get 20%. We're going to borrow some money. I'm like, but why? I'm like, you can still borrow that money from your family or whatever, but I can get you in for 10%. Hey, your payment's not that much different. Can you make this payment work? They're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, okay, but now you have a fallback of like 80 grand in your bank account still. So do that. Don't put it all down. Not for the $350 or whatever the heck it was that they're going to save a month, right? Like now you have a peace of mind, at least if like one was a doctor, one's a nurse, one's a nurse and one's a teacher. So their jobs are pretty secure. But like if you didn't for some reason, like you get hard at work and WorkSafe is fighting you, you have fallback for over a year just in case, right?
Totally. And that's a terrific way of looking at it, is like, how much runway do you give these people? And I think it goes back to how comfortable do we want to live, right? So we have to look at it too, is if we're making X dollars for how many months we're working, like we have to look at that. And like, if we can do that and we can have a runway for another year, like I could stop my business today and let myself go to zero for X weeks, X months, and I'd be fine. Right.
Well, until you go to zero and you have no business in the pipeline, and then you're like, it takes 90 days to close a deal.
That's the other part too, is like, those are numbers you should have, or
you have enough money till March. I got to refire things up in December to keep money going after March.
And then even like, I've said this numerous times, like I have different accounts in my business for donations and taxes and GST. And I intentionally do that so I know that those are allocated. And then the rest of the operating is like, I have until this point.
Two guys talking about business stuff. One is a realtor, the other's really buff. Sometimes they have guests. It's the Conscious Business Podcast.